Hey everyone, and welcome to the October Sew Along. This month's project is this stunning poppy garden flag. The design consists of 8 different blocks which come in the 4x4, 5x5, 6x6 and 7x7. In this video we will be showing you the stitch out of block 3 as well as the construction of the flag. Let's begin with the block. Place your batting on top of the hooped up stabilizer and stitch it down. Using your applique scissors, trim away the excess batting. Stitch the placement line for fabric A, and then place fabric A right side up on top of the placement line and stitch down. Use your applique scissors to trim away only the bottom edge. Leave the excess fabric in the seam. Place fabric B wrong side up on top of the hoop. One edge 1/4 inch crossing the placement line, with the rest of the fabric on top of fabric A and stitch down. Fold fabric B over and stitch down again. Trim only the bottom edge. Now repeat this same flip and fold process for fabric C, however do not trim any fabric. Embroider the quilting that embroiders over the top of the 3 background pieces. Now in the instructions you will see a diagram for each block. Simply follow this diagram to see which part of the design is embroidering next. For this block 3 there are only 2 little pieces of applique. Start by stitching the placement line for the first petal section. Then place a small cut piece of fabric on top of the placement line and stitch down. Use your applique scissors to trim the excess fabric. Repeat the applique process for the second petal section. From here, continue stitching the rest of the embroidery, following the diagram in the instructions. Once all stitching is complete, remove the block from the hoop. With a rotary cutter and ruler, trim the seams back to about 1/2 inch. Once you have made all of the required blocks for your flag, lay them out on your work surface in the correct order. To begin the construction of the flag, place the first 2 blocks right sides together and pin along the joining edge. Move over to your sewing machine and stitch the 2 together using about a 1/2 inch seam. Once sewn, iron open the seam on the back of the blocks, and you can also give the front of the blocks a good press with the iron as well. Continue sewing the remaining rows of blocks together using the same method. To join the rows, place them right sides together and pin and stitch along the joining edge, just like we did when we were joining the 2 blocks together. Use a 1/2 inch seam and try your hardest to get all of the flower stems matching up. Continue this until all blocks and rows are joined together. So we can turn this into a hanging flag, we need to add loops to the top edge. To do this, fold the 2 long edges of fabric D over about 1/2 inch and wrong sides together. Press the folds with the iron. Then fold the entire fabric D strip in half, again wrong sides together and with the folds of the 2 long edges meeting up. Press the fold with the iron. Using your sewing machine, top stitch along the 2 long edges and use a top thread and bobbin thread that match the colour of your fabric. Repeat this sewing process for the second fabric D strip. Fold the 2 fabric D strips in half to create 2 loops and work out where you are placing them at the top of your flag. We placed our loops about 1.5 inches in from the side border stitching. Once you have worked out where you are placing them, pin them both in place. Use your sewing machine to stay stitch the 2 loops in place. Using a rotary cutter and ruler, trim any excess fabric from the loops as well as any loose threads from around the flag. To attach the backing, place your flag front right side up on top of the wrong side of fabric E, making sure you have about 2 inches or more of excess backing fabric around each edge of the flag. Use safety pins to pin the two together. Now move over to your sewing machine and use the stitch in the ditch method to attach the backing fabric to the flag. For this step, make sure your bobbin thread matches the colour of your backing fabric, and for your top thread you can either use an invisible thread or a colour that blends in well with the fabrics on the front of the flag. Use your rotary cutter and ruler to trim the excess backing fabric to 1 1/4 inches from the raw edges of the flag. Starting along one of the long edges, fold the backing fabric in half and up to the raw edge of the flag. Use your iron to press the fold as you go. Continue this to the first angled corner and then continue folding the backing fabric in half along that first angled edge as well. Go back to the first long edge and fold the backing fabric in half again, but this time fold it just past the seam stitching on the blocks. Iron and pin the fold in place as you go. Continue folding the first angled edge in half again as well, and you should then be left with a neat mitered corner between the two edges. Once you get to the very point of the flag, fold it over so the folded edge sits just against the raw edge of the flag. Iron it in place and then continue folding the backing fabric in half along that second angled edge. Continue this folding and pinning process until you make your way around the rest of the flag. Using your sewing machine, top stitch the backing fabric, which has actually turned into binding, to the front of the flag, and colour match your top and bobbin threads to match the colour of your backing fabric. You will notice that the loops are still facing towards the centre of the flag. Flip these over and then stitch the bottom of the loops to the binding. We have a little diagram in the instructions to show you how we did this. Well done everyone, you have now finished your beautiful poppy flags. Be sure to post your photos to our Sew Along Facebook page, as we love seeing all of your finished designs and the different creations you make using the blocks.